Unity is very important. Unity must be in our hearts, in our hearts, in our prayers. Unity is very important. Unity is very important. Unity must be in our hearts, in our hearts, in our prayers. Unity is very important. Unity must be in our hearts, in our hearts, in our prayers. Let each unite our gospel. Unit of peace, unit of humor, unit of tranquility, unit, oh yeah, unit, oh yeah, is ever important. Let each unite our gospel. Unit of peace, unit of humor, unit of tranquility, unit, oh yeah, unit, oh yeah, is ever important. No unity, unity, no peace, unity, no peace, unity, no development, unity, no development, unity, no job, unity is ever important. No unity, unity, no peace, unity, no peace, unity, no development, unity, no development, unity, no job, unity is ever important. Unity, the gospel, unity of peace, unity of humor, unity of tranquility, unity, oh yeah, unity, oh yeah, is ever important. No Shona, unity, no Lebele, unity, no Kalanga, unity, no Venda, unity, oh yeah, unity, oh yeah, unity, oh yeah, is ever important. No color, no Zulu, no Karanga, no I, oh yeah, oh.
Thank you so much. I never come across this song. I only came across it today, and I thought, wow, amazing, isn't it? What we all need. Welcome to Salve TV. This is Monica Kunzekwe Guta, your host. I am going to. Our title today is Zim is moving forwards or backwards, and this is part 2. So I'm going to ask Reverend Maforo I'm going to ask every panelist to introduce themselves. And Reverend Maforo is going to recap from the discussion we had last week, because that is when we decided that we are going to have part 2 and invite other people to the panel. So Reverend Maforo, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Monica, and good evening. I think that for our folks in Zimbabwe, this is getting closer to morning, right? And I know myself and Wejira, we are probably in the same time zone, the central time zone. Anyway, greetings to you all. My name is Jacob Maforo. I'm a pastor, and I serve in the Great Plains Conference of the United Methodist Church, and this covers Kansas and Nebraska. And I happen to also be the coordinator of the building for the future conference, and this is a conference we host here in Kansas. The purpose being to bring together all those persons who are fired up, excited, and actively involved in projects in Zimbabwe. So we come together and talk about the different projects that people are doing. And we discuss best practices, opportunities for fundraising. And we are just saying to ourselves, here we are living the American dream, but how does that factor into our lives as Zimbabweans. So that's what we do. I also sit on the board of FOSA. This is an organization based here in the USA that raises funds for the Fairfield Children's Home in Zimbabwe. And I also sit on the board of CCIP Zimbabwe, and just excited to be involved in anyhow that we can feed into our vision for Zimbabwe. We are excited. So I'm happy to be also a part of South TV and to be a co-host with Monica. I will, after the introductions, I'll give you a recap from our last discussion. Over to you, Wejira.
I'm not sure if you can hear me, but if you can, I can continue.
Yes, Wejira, you can go ahead. I know there's some kind of disruption to your sound.
Okay. Well, my name is Kennedy Masie. I'm a human rights lawyer, and
we lost Wejira for a while, but for a minute, we'll go over to Mkoma Simba.
Thank you, Reverend. My name is Simba Mujuru. I'm based in Detroit, Michigan. I've been in the US since 1998. I came for school, and now I'm self-employed. I work for myself. I've got a little business here. I'm also Secretary of ZANU-PF in the United States. So basically, I support the policy of the current government, and one of the government is talking about, specifically the president himself, Comrade E.J. Agwa, is giving the man to go out and listen to what everybody's talking about. This is my third discussion for the day, so that can give you an idea what pace we are on in executing the president's mandate to really listen and taking notes. So I hope this is a conversation that continues in that tradition of us Zimbabweans talking regardless of political affiliation, professions, religious beliefs. At the end of the day, we're one country, one nation, and we should talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Masie, you can introduce yourself.
Okay. Yes, my name is Kennedy Masie. I'm a human rights lawyer, and I'm currently the MDC Alliance chairperson for Dallas. I've been a human rights lawyer for the past 10 years, and I litigated human rights cases in Zimbabwe, where I represented victims of torture, victims of abductions, and victims of arbitrary arrest.
Mr. Signoro, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, everyone. My name is Signor Uncle K. I'm the founding principal of Zimbabwe Culture and Culture Protection Trust, advocating for the restoration, preservation, and protection of our national culture and heritage. I just want to make it clear from the very onset, I am a non-aligned figure. I'm not representing any political party. I'm representing myself, and I'm representing the culture community, the heritage community. I'm interested in anything that has to do with socio-economic development, anything that has to do with advising whoever is going to be a leader, whether a councillor, MP, the president, anybody who feels they can take the responsibility to lead us in whatever aspect.
Thank you very much. Reverend Maforo, can you give us a recap of our discussion that we had last week, and then we just take it from there? You're muted.
Okay, I was saying if it's going to be difficult for Wejira to connect, I would suggest that we can have him just on voice and not on video, because I see that there's some disruption on his device. And very well, and thank you to Uncle Signor. I know we interacted for the first time last week. We taped from each other's views. We disagreed in some areas, but I enjoyed the fact that we respectfully disagreed. So and where we agreed, we noted that we had good convergence. So I want to say what we are doing today. Where are we? This is a continuation from a conversation we had last week. In that conversation, the question is very clear there that Zimbabwe is moving. But as we listen to different spectrums of our society, we do have proponents that suggest that, yes, it is moving forward. We are moving forward. But hey, we have other proponents who argue that we are moving backward. And when you hear all these views, you wonder, are we talking about the same country? So we looked at just the basics for Mr. Mjuru, who was not there. We looked at just the basics. We had Monica argued that though the country is moving, but she had her own concerns about what that moving means for her. She highlighted areas that she felt that as a nation, there are areas we have not exactly moved as fast as we want, and to be at par with countries in our region and so forth. I did offer a presentation that captured what the Second Republic of Idi Mnangagwa has done to date. And therefore, that's where we kind of covered. We did not finish this discussion. Even if we do our best today, we will not exhaust it. This is a conversation that we must bring the whole nation together. I think the motivation is we ought to move. We are moving. How do we bring that understanding? Because there's a feeling that even where it's clear that this is not red, it's black, I think that because of polarization, we can choose to say this is blue, it's not black. So what causes this different interpretation of actual events that are happening on the ground. I would propose that, yes, we are moving, but we want to hear more perspective of your appreciation, Mr. Mjuru, and for you, Monica. I know you still have some views to put across. So I hope I have given a recap. On one hand, you have more specifically the ruling party supporters and more neutral people say it's moving and acknowledging where we are, what's happening, what are the developments. But we do have another, mostly the opposition are saying, no, 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 wait a minute, we are not moving. So that's where I will try and stop and say, I don't know whether Monica, you'll go first or Mr. Mjuru.
I think I'll let Mr. Mjuru go first.
If my explanation has been clear to you.
Oh yeah, it absolutely makes a lot of sense, and thank you, Monica, for yielding. And I'm happy to be here. I'm glad to be here. When I looked at the title of discussion, moving forward or backwards, a few things came to mind instantly. Even though we discussed a little bit yesterday, I didn't want to bring it up because I wanted to bring it up during the discussion, so it's more organic. When you have a population of 14 or 15 million people, then we talk about moving, whether it's backward or forward, you're likely to get 14 or 15 million perspectives because we're all not looking through the same lens. I could define moving in the terms of my profession or what my beliefs, my own society. So it's not unusual for us to vary in our opinions because we're a diverse country with diverse views. But in terms of certain things that we can measure economically, are we going forward? Is the economy growing? Empowerment, are we empowering our people? And when we talk about moving too, we need to understand we're moving from what? Where at what point are we measuring the growth or movement? For example, I'd like to talk about the fact that when we have people, especially from the opposition, which they tend to, not that I'm throwing them under the bus, but just for discussion purposes, they want to pick a specific point and say we're moving from this point, and sometimes forget the other points. And people from me, like me, who are part of the ruling party, we want to look at the journey prior independence too, to say, have we grown? We were here, now we are there. So all those things are things that maybe we should consider looking at as we discuss this very important topic, in my view. Thank you so much.
Reverend Maforo, have you got anything to add?
Yes, I think that maybe what we want to do at this very moment, I think that there's an argument, or there's the question of the day. Why, in your view, Mr. Mjuru, why would you say people are so polarized to the extent that even it's very clear? Maybe we can start with infrastructure. Why do you think, even though infrastructure is a physical movement of things,
Yep.
and one would wonder, why is it that people would not acknowledge what we see with their eyes? Because I think that during the First Republic, the argument was the government is not doing anything. The roads are potholed, the infrastructure, water supply is, electricity. And now, as those things are now beginning to be, developed, the response we hear is that, well, that's the responsibility of the government. Why do you think there is the resistance to acknowledge that there is something happening and it's positive?
I think it comes back purely onto politics. If the opposition, and the reason why I keep going back to the opposition, because they play a part in dissemination of information. In other words, they disseminate information to a lot of people, especially in the urban areas in Zimbabwe. If they were to come on board and agree and say there's proper development happening on the ground, it'll insinuate that they are endorsing the ruling party. So even though they see active development, even when you pass through a grader making roads on your way from work, they cannot acknowledge it, because in their view, they feel that if they're acknowledging it, they're giving credit to the ruling party. And the whole goal of opposition in this manner is to try and oppose everything, regardless whether it's good or not, and try and look for the bad instead of actively looking for the good, what's happening in the economy. So I would say, for as long as the opposition is playing that role where they just are looking for bad things instead of being more objective and really looking to see what's going on, we're going to continue to see this polarization. And sometimes when we use the word polarization, people might look at it as if it's extremely bad. It's not extremely bad all the time. It's only bad when it's destructive. But look at the United States, for example. The United States is polarized. I mean, the last election, there was a huge turnout, but the difference there, I think, Joe Biden got 72 million votes and Trump got 60 something million. It's still a highly polarized country, considering we're talking about 330 million people. So polarization defines different views, which is not bad. What's bad is when we start painting everything to be bad for political mileage. So if we start saying everything is bad because I want my candidate to be the president, so I'm going to say ugly things about our nation in order to achieve this, that's where I kind of like start having a problem with it. But if we're just polarized because our views are different, um, or maybe because somebody likes Dynamos and somebody likes Cabs United, and those are divided into two equally, that's polarization too. So politically is where the big problem is. That would be my view. It comes down to politics and the dissemination of information, specifically from the opposition side.
And
Um,
thank
can
you. Over to you, Monica. You want to intervene?
Mhm. I just want to chime in and say that I see that both parties have got the same way of saying bad stuff about each other. I would just give an example, just purely from observation. We have, I think, when Chamisa used to campaign, he would say, "We'll give you spaghetti roads," which were flyovers, and the other party would say, "That's nonsense." Now that this the Mbudzi flyover is being done, it seems that it's now acceptable. My argument would be that chakanaka, whether it's being done by which party or which side or who is doing it. I think if I'm able to go past the issue that is the other political party doing it or saying it, therefore it doesn't make sense when I know within myself that this makes sense. We need to have this maturity, all of us, where we say, you know what, this is a good idea, because it doesn't make sense for me to go and I see that maybe the electricity is now there 75% of the time, and I insisted that there's nothing that they're doing. It wouldn't make sense. I should give credit where it's due. And I think if we start behaving and looking at what is good and acknowledging chakanaka chaitwa nemumwe, we can move forward. But then you also need to remember that there are other people who have never been out of Zimbabwe, and for sure they have never seen a spaghetti road. And if I turn around and say the idea that there could be a spaghetti road or whatever is nonsense, and they look up to me, I have traveled and they know that I've seen it somewhere, and I'm selling that idea that this is really nonsensical, then they'll start saying, that other person is crazy. Let's just, yeah, it's possible to have that, but with what we have, give an argument which makes sense rather than just putting each other down. I think that will be my contribution to that.
Can I jump in there for a second?
Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
The aspect of politics, right, is a debate on ideas, and I agree with you when it comes to that. We never want to take noise sometimes away from politics, because those are conversations sometimes heated and very, very emotions involved, because we all ultimately want what's best for the country and we've got different ideas. The problem we had with the Chamisa, or let me Chamisa statements were spaghetti roads, airports in every village. How are you going to pay for it? You see, where we now say something is nonsense is because if you don't establish how you're going to fund it, you can't promise people airports in Murewa and promise. You see, you can't make all these promises, because if you're not careful with politicians, they're going to promise you everything. There's nothing they're going to say we cannot deliver. Sometimes it's very important for us to be realistic. If I say we're going to build the new parliament, this is how we're going to fund it. We're going to construct roads, right? We're going to build toll gates. We're going to collect money. Once we collect money, we're going to start reconstruction. We see that we've got 19,000 kilometers of bad roads in Zimbabwe. We start having a plan to say, out of those 19,000 kilometers, how many thousand kilometers can we fix by the next 2 years? And we present it to you like that, like what ZANU-PF did. ZANU-PF said 19,000 kilometers of road needs done. We can do 5,000 by the end of 2023, and this is how we're going to fund it. So don't promise us the sky and not tell us how you're going to pay for it. So what was nonsensical, according to the views of people like me, was the fact that we are promising, but we're not turning around to say, this is how we're going to fund it. So we needed that perspective to come in and be clarified and not be sly with words to voters so that you get votes. I think that's where that came from.
Okay, I think I'll bring Kennedy up to speed here. Kennedy, while you were gone, we did the introduction. You probably were able to hear some of it, maybe not. But where we are, the point that you have not been able to intervene, which everybody has, is the question that's moving on the screen. And we are saying that as a nation, why is it that it's one nation, but people see it totally differently? And it's okay to have polarity, but it's not okay to be dysfunctional. What is your view about the topic as it has been presented to you? And that will be for Kennedy. You are still muted. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend. Can you hear me? Yes. So the thing that strikes me most is the fact that people from ZANU-PF, they tend to deal with politics personalities, and they tend to put statements that probably divide the nation when people want to dream. Here in America, we do have the American dream. People should not be to dream. That's the first thing. Whereas, like nonsensical, that the airport can be put in areas that are remote, those are not good statements in any debate. Debates, as you rightly said, should be about
ideas. There should not be debates about personalities. There should not be debates about putting in words that strike emotions, all that stuff. But what I just want to say is is an issue of the leadership. It's a issue about legitimacy. It's an issue that divides people in various areas, be it professional, be it farmers, be it people vari diaspora, be it people who are professionals. And why do we have that? It's an issue that emanates from issues of legitimacy, and it goes down to issues of elections. It goes down to issues of that any country should have with its leaders. So if you don't have a social contract that is believable, that people can confide in, then it becomes a problem. So we need to first look at the issues that we have in Zimbabwe, which are the roads. Zanu about ideas like that you run like that. No, it should not be like that. We should look at how can we engage each other, and how can those ideas that are coming from the opposition be adopted, not be cast back and say, "Good, this is nonsense." Those things are real, and those things are uplift communities also if we dream as Zimbabweans, and if we not put in politics of personalities. And another thing that we have in Zimbabwe, which going back to the topic, is Zimbabwe moving forward or backward, is an issue of corruption. We've got corrupt leaders, and corruption has been identified or with the ZANU-PF. There's nothing that ZANU-PF right now today, the government is doing to make sure that even investors confide in in what's happening in Zimbabwe. There's nothing that they're doing to even arrest corrupt leaders who we know just a few months ago we were told that
You have been muted. It's probably by mistake. You are muted, my brother Kennedy. For some reason, you are muted again.
went missing. Nothing is being done about trying to get redress. So it's an issue of legitimacy. It's an issue of not addressing the core issues that are affecting Zimbabweans today.
And okay, while you are still there, we will need to move to our brother Senior. While you are still there, I am hearing you identifying the issue of legitimacy and also the issue of corruption. Are those the standards by which we are saying the country is not moving? And again, please unmute.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm saying that
I had finished.
Okay, let's move to, you can mute now. So my brother Signoro can unmute. My brother Signoro, you were with us last week, and we had already laid the groundwork in terms of establishing the status of the nation. And I do know that you still had a lot to bring to the table. Would you want to go ahead and continue with this conversation? And I'm sure you have heard what the other two panelists have said.
Mr. Maforo, thank you so much. Monica, welcome. Simba and Kennedy, if I got your names right, welcome to the show. It's a privilege and honor to be part of this program, which I think I'm going to be categorically correct. I'll try by all means. Let me be very clear, like I said in the introduction. There's a reason why I'm apolitical. From what Simba was saying, I can comfortably say that is cheap politicking in Zimbabwe between the two political parties, where we see people playing games. We see people who we look up to as leadership, as alluded earlier, whether it's a councillor, MP, or anybody who is supporting any political party. They seem to be, I don't know whether they are too blind to see that Zimbabwean economy is bleeding, and they are not articulating the fundamental issues, the issues at hand that can bring food to the table.
And what are those?
You spoke about, I'll quote the word nonsensical. I think it's not fair politics sometimes when you hear people throwing spanners, insulting each other, instead of identifying the failures by the current administration. And you're asking me, Mr. Maforo, what are those issues? The issues that have to do with socio-economic development. There's very little being done by the political voices. There's very little being done by the political voices, which is tangible, which demonstrates that they really love their country, they love their people. I think both sides of the coin, in my view, they are selfish and they do not have the future leadership in mind. Whatever they're doing, it's for now. They seem not to care about what will happen tomorrow.
Can I stop you there, my brother? I think you're losing me, and I want you to find me. What is the goal of being apolitical in this case? How would you address the concerns that you are raising? And I'm still very keen on knowing what those concerns are or what they look like. And go ahead.
I'm sure you'll agree with me that we have for a very long time forgotten about the foundation, the fundamental principles of building an economy. And a nation that has lost its values a nation that has lost its traditions, its culture. It's a dead nation. And this is why you are hearing from the opposition that he is crying out loud to say, we are being called names. It starts from there, Mr. Maforo, that if we are not disciplined, if we are not focused, if we do not have a common ground as a people, surely anything else that we are doing is not sustainable. This is why we are dangling as an economy. We are moving, but we are not moving that much. If at all, maybe there is more haste and less speed in whatever we are doing as a people. I'll give an example. During Mugabe's time, it was kind of taboo to talk about succession. It was totally unacceptable to say anything that suggests or opposes the leader, the leader then, RG Mugabe. The point that I'm bringing up is that it is the opposition voice. I will not say MDC, but I will say opposition voice that pushed for young leadership. But if you look at what is happening today, we have seen G40 coming into play slowly but surely. But as we speak right now, whatever the opposition voice was advocating for, it is the status quo right now to say we need to empower the youth. We need to put youth in offices of authority. And the million-dollar question is, why can't the two political sides come in and marry and actually combine their views? Because that now becomes an issue of national interest.
Well, I'm going to have to ask my brother Simba to respond to you and to my brother Kennedy here. But beyond that, I think that for us to make a movement towards our topic, I'm very interested here, my brother Simba, that ZANU-PF had promises it made to the people 2018 thereabout, and presented to the people its agenda for the for this period that we are in. Would you identify more directly some of the fulfillment or fulfilled promises from the 2018 elections? And as you present on those, maybe that also touches into your responses to what the previous two speakers have said. So would you say directly, here is what ZANU-PF promised, and here is what ZANU-PF has fulfilled within this elected period that it is in? So I think it helps us to narrow down the question of either moving forward or backward, because I think we can nail down to specifics here.
Sorry, I started talking there. I forgot that I'd muted myself. But yeah, definitely you're right. I would start by answering a little bit about what Signoro said, that what I meant was nonsensical. When we debate issues, and I remember my statement was not directed at anybody in particular. It was the idea of promising something without stating how it's going to be funded. That's what I call nonsensical. So I wanted to clear that up firstly. Secondly, my friend there, Kennedy, came up and talked about corruption. Yes, His Excellency himself, President Idi Mnangagwa, said corruption is like a cancer in our society and it needs to be dealt with. So we can agree there that corruption is an issue within our country. If the head of state, head of government is saying it himself, it should trickle down all the way to the bottom, and it's something that we should be aware of. And also, it's important for us to highlight that he almost made it sound like corruption is only in ZANU-PF. That is not true. The MD itself has had corruption issues. In fact, not has had, is currently having corruption issues. So let's not take it and lump it to one party here, and look at it and deal with it like a national issue as it is. So if the head of state has already said it's a problem within our economy, it is. I take it to be a problem within our economy for real. Then he talked about legitimacy. Again, when we come to these platforms, we cannot continue debating old debates. The legitimacy statement is a very old entire debate now. We are almost going to another election, and these guys still continue to talk about this thing. And when they talk about it, what they don't tell you is that the same election that the president won also gave them MPs. When they talk about legitimacy, they tend to say, well, the president this, but our MPs are legitimate. That's so wrong in itself. If you are going to have that stance, be consistent at least. But it's just, I don't think we should spend time talking about that, because it's just a tired old issue. When it comes to promises that we're working on, obviously we're in the middle of the term. One of the core things that the president has talked about is moving us to becoming a middle income economy by 2030. The good thing about that statement that when the president came out and said it, is that it gave us a vision, something to work towards. Especially because in the First Republic, I felt we never used to have that. The Second Republic, when President E.D. became president, he said, talking to me, this is me listening to my president, we want our country to be a middle economy by the 2030. So that gave me clarity. That gave me direction of where we're going. Then we look at the money supply. Again, the huge difference. I was in Zimbabwe about 3 months ago in July. I came from the United States in Harare, went to an ATM. I was able to withdraw United States dollars. The last time I did that was probably 2010. So when it comes to growth and development, I see a big jump there. We talk about this power supply. I know communities back in the day in Zimbabwe that went for days and weeks without power. Now, everybody can agree that there's a huge improvement. Is it where we want it to be yet? No, but these things happen step at a time, one step at a time, and we're moving forward. Let's talk about the roads, the construction that's happening. They're restoring those old roads. Look at Chirundi Road. What's happening there? Look at Seke Road. What's happening there? Look at Mashingo Road. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And Monica talked about spaghetti roads there on your way, Beatrice there, Kumbuzi. All these are developments that are happening under the Second Republic. Then we talk about the power generation, the rehab that's being done at Kariba, Wangi Power Station. All this work that's benefiting Zimbabweans directly. Surely we have to say that there's movement going forward. We might not be happy with the pace, and we shouldn't be. We should continue to push our government for more, but we cannot claim that there's no growth or development that's happening on that front. Thank you so much, Reverend.
If I may come in there.
Yes, I would like for Mr. Masia to come in. I think that while you talked about the infrastructure, I would have also loved to hear about social safety nets, social welfare, about education, about health, and all those other things. And I think we will circle around and come to that. But let's hear from Kennedy what your response will be to the two previous speakers.
Okay, I would like to respond to my colleague, Mr. Simba there. I'm not sure when he started to follow issues in Zimbabwe or when he joined, i.e. roads, probably whatever development you're talking about, the Kariba infrastructure, that was a Mugabe's project.
and it started during Mugabe's time. I don't know why you would want to say ED is the one who initiated that or is going ahead with that. Those are old projects which should have been finished way back. Then, secondly, when you talk about issue of the legitimacy issue being an old issue, I don't really understand what you're saying, because that is the real issue that is there in whatever political parties that they have Zimbabwe to come and talk about that. Because they, I know the issue about elections is a real issue, and the issue of legitimacy is a critical issue that is affecting Zimbabwe today, and that is on how we can actually bring the Zimbabweans together and discuss issues. The issue of legitimacy.
While you
And
are there, Kennedy, would you be more specific about legitimacy? What are you talking about? Help us
okay,
there.
yes, I'm talking about stolen elections. The elections were stolen by ZANU-PF, and it's clear how they were stolen. The laws, electoral laws that are there, through the manipulation of votes in the various constituencies, and through the non-willingness of the government to align, electoral laws and other laws help facilitate free and fair elections with the constitution. So that's what we're talking about when I'm talking about legitimacy. Stolen elections that are results that don't bring confidence to the voters who actually went there to vote. So that is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about legitimacy, and those issues need to be addressed. We have been talking about aligning laws, electoral laws, various laws that help people go into the ballot and safely cast their votes and reasonably anticipate whatever results that they need to anticipate without any issues coming out. But today we're still talking about the very same issues about aligning an electoral act with the constitution that has been there since 2013. Why are we still talking about that? ZANU-PF is throwing spanners in that because they cannot reform themselves out of power. That is what Chinamasa said in one interview that he had. He said so about those issues, and you're talking to a person, an activist who's in Zimbabwe. Those are the same issues that we're talking about. Of course, we can agree that there are some issues in terms of the economy that have been that are now working. As you said, you went to Zimbabwe and you could take money out of the ATM. That's you. You've got money. You've got money that you can take away from an ATM in US dollars. But you've got a teacher in Zimbabwe who cannot afford to take his children to school, who cannot even afford to actually get transportation to school, and who cannot even afford to even take out 10 US dollars from that same ATM that you're talking about. Those are the same people that we're talking about. You're talking about Zimbabwe being a middle class economy in what that is
23rd.
wrong. That is, yeah. So that is wrong. We need to discuss issues that
Okay, Kennedy,
are affecting.
you are a lawyer and help us here to understand things from a legal perspective. And I want to come back to the legitimacy question. And my role is to ask you a question. When you say legitimacy issue is at stake, what is your interpretation of the Constitutional Court outcome of 2018 related to the elections and the contested election outcome? What is your interpretation, understanding of the outcome of that court case, of the challenge? And how does that factor into the legitimacy argument? Are you there, Kennedy? Kennedy, I think we lost you for a minute, and maybe I will can I move on to Signoro? Maybe Signoro, you can unmute. I can see Kennedy's unmuted, but I just can't hear from him. Would you like to address to the issue of legitimacy? Maybe help to answer the question. I would have loved for Kennedy, because I know he's a lawyer who practiced in Zimbabwe and a human rights lawyer. But and I know that from you as a social activist and cultural advocate, but I think that you hear that we really can't move forward until the legitimacy question has been established. What's your response to that? I think Kennedy is back. Kennedy, would you like to answer my question?
Okay, let me come in there, Mr. Mafol. I think the issue of legitimacy is a sticking issue in Zimbabwe. Simba, could I be right that the constitution of ZANU-PF, it demands that the president, at the time 2017 in December, R.G. Mugabe was supposed to convene a meeting of the Central Committee, which was then going to decide who is to take over from Robert Mugabe as the president of the party. The reason why I'm highlighting this, Mr. Maforo and everyone who's listening here, I think this is now factual, what I meant earlier, because we do not have legitimacy following the Malaba judgment that Chamisa is not legitimate leader of MTC. On the other hand, I think there's something that we are overlooking, that the current president of ZANU-PF, who was then the candidate for the presidential candidate, who is now the president, head of state and government, Emerson Namudzo Mnangagwa, is not also legit because there was no meeting. No meeting took place in December 2017, as provided for in the constitution, in ZANU-PF constitution. And I would like to pause and direct this question to Simba. We are on the issue of legitimacy.
Okay, Simba, that is coming straight to you.
Hi, Reverend. I think we had started off well, and now I think we are now starting to spiral almost into a conversation that I said earlier on. It's like you're on a treadmill, you're running, and you're not going anywhere. You're still in the same spot. The opportunity for the opposition to take the case to the highest court in the land was given. They did that. They were not. They satisfy the court with evidence. They lost in court. The highest court in the land made a decision. So my concern about this conversation, really, and I appeal to you, let's have a conversation that moves us forward. That is why we're here. This legitimacy issue, Changirai used to talk about it in 2002. We can't have this conversation now in 2022, 2021. It's just, like I said, from our angle, let's move the country forward. This is done. We're not going to reverse the decision made by the highest court in the land. We're not going to undo the president being the president. He's a legitimate president of the country. He's a leader. We have to only get one quarterback at a time. So let's discuss issues. If we're going to talk about going forward, certainly this is not one of the conversations. Let's talk about the economy. Let's talk about social welfare issues that you were talking about earlier on. Those are things I want to engage in. The amount of vaccines that we've given to Zimbabweans for COVID, more than any other country in Southern Africa, and appealing to more people to come forward and get vaccinated so that our country is healthier in general. The infrastructure of the hospitals, those are the conversations I'm really hoping we start talking about. But for me to engage in an issue of legitimacy over a court case years ago, I think we're not going forward. So I'm happy to continue conversation if we're going to talk about issues that really move our country forward. Thank you, Reverend.
I think obviously while you're still there, I think what brought us back, in fact, to your last response before this, you kind of narrated the areas that you believe that the current government has fulfilled in terms of promises.
Yes.
Electoral promises. And I think at the last of your presentation, you remember I said you have identified areas that people can physically see, and these are mostly infrastructural. I think for me, without giving my opinions, I think that one of the most beautiful sights to see is the new parliament building.
Yes.
But again, we are looking at those. These are physical, tangible, infrastructural. Would you add to those what you believe are developmental and moving our nation forward in terms of education, health, and social safety nets? I would like to hear, and again, in terms of changing the lives of young people, empowerment, so forth. Would you add to that? I want to come back to Kennedy to give a response specific to those.
Thank you so much, and I'm going to have to apologize first and say, the question you raised when you're talking about it, it came through my mind, and I just saw how much limited information I have on the specific question, which is a good one, which I hope we have this session again and you give me time to go and dig, especially when it comes to the social networks. So I want to come back with specifics. The lines that I was thinking along was what we've been able to do for the victims of Idai. Because people now tend to forget that socially we needed to provide a net for those victims that woke up one day and they did not have a home, they did not have roads, the community was devastated. So the government has been working with the community to rebuild some of those homes, or restore some of those roads, that infrastructure, to put it back to normalize lives. So that's an important one when it comes to social issues. But I keep coming back to vaccinations and how those are important in terms of the fabric of our communities. Zimbabwe again is leading the region in terms of vaccination. But I do want to come back later. I hope you invite me again with more specifics. If I pull something from the Ministry of Child Welfare, like you were insinuating earlier on, I'd have to apologize here that my information, particular on that question, is kind of limited, and I really don't want to waffle. So I'd rather come back with specifics when it comes to that question.
It is an honorable thing to do. I'm coming back to Kennedy there. Kennedy, Mr. Mjuru has
point of order.
Yes.
Point of order, Mafora.
Yes.
I think this is where this is the epicenter. This is where we have a problem as Zimbabweans. This is the voice of the ruling party on this panel, and Simba chooses to design his own questions. You through you, Chair, you asked a question which is, I think the question itself is legit and it's critical. It's critically important. And if the current administration knows very well that they won the election and they are legit, I have a problem, a very serious problem as a concerned citizen. Why they cannot respond directly to a sticking question of legitimacy? I made it very clear, and it's a response that I would like, maybe through you, Chair, from ZANU-PF, represented by Simba here. was there a meeting? Did a meeting take place? Because why I'm highlighting this, it is the same issue that went into the courts, as cited by ZANU-PF, that Chamisa is not legit. I think the question of legit, or rather the issue of the legitimacy, is a very sticking issue, and we need to be very clear. And I don't think we should have any questions that we should brush off, because this is critical. It's critical for the economy to retain its original status. This is where the problem is. There are certain questions that are not supposed to be asked according to the thinking of the current administration.
As a matter of clarity, I am in control of the questions. I don't think he has told me how to ask, but I brought to Mr. Mujuru a question that came through you and from Mr. Masie, the question of legitimacy. Here is what I heard from him. Of course, he did not address the question of internal ZANU-PF politics. He addressed the question of the Constitutional Court in relationship to the 2018 election. And I think that was the same question that had come from Kennedy, and from both of you, it is at the center of whether the country can move forward or not. I will throw that back to you. We are in 2021. We have elections in 2023. Would you proffer suggestions of how the country today in 2021 must address the legitimacy question as you present it? Let me come to Kennedy.
Yes, thank you, Reverend. The issue of legitimacy today in 2021 can be addressed by the points that I talked about earlier on. We have laws that facilitate rigging in Zimbabwe. We've got electoral laws that need to be aligned with the Constitution. We've got laws that deal with access to information that need to be aligned with the Constitution. We've got laws that deal with public order and security that also need to be aligned with the Constitution. We've got ZAC that also needs to be equipped effectively with with things that will enable it to conduct an election in a manner that is considered free and fair.
Who plays that role? Who plays that role of legislative change?
That's the government.
You said what?
That's the government that plays that role. So now we do have those issues at play. I'm not sure, boss. That's the law, Mr. Mjuru. I don't know what you're shaking your head about, but we do have issues that those are the issues that I'm talking about. Like that's the government's role that deals with making sure that all those things are in order. And when I'm talking about the government, I know Mr. Mjuru might not be aware of this. There's the executive, there's the parliament, and there's also the the judiciary. That is those are the three pillars of the government in terms of the law. So now going back to the issue of the question that you talked about that Mr. Mjuru did not have answers about, that talk about the social nets that are available today, that talks about probably the general welfare about the citizens. That is where ZANU-PF is killing people. ZANU-PF has been on and on about the mantra Zimbabwe is open for business. But as you could see from Mr. Mjuru's answer, he does not even have an idea of what is happening in terms of the social safe nets that are there, or even the general welfare of Zimbabweans. ZANU-PF does not care about that. We've got, I'll go back and give you an example about teachers. We've got teachers today who are crying, who cannot afford to take their own children to court, to school, who cannot afford to go back to work. We've got nurses today who are being affected by coronavirus and other preventative diseases because they cannot get PPPs from this very same government. We've got children today who cannot afford to go to school because their parents are not earning anything because of their salaries, being inadequate. We've got people, civil servants who are working for the government today, who are being made to pay rentals in US dollars, while they are being paid in that useless bond note. And the government is not taking care of those things. Those are some of the social safety networks that the government should be thinking about, how it should take care of its own citizens, how it should make sure that all the mantras that they are talking about, translate from just being talk, but to benefit the ordinary person in the rural areas. So those are some of the issues that are happening. You talked about Idai government did nothing about those things. Donor funds were actually used to help those people. 90% of the help that went to Idai came from donor funds. And I don't even know why someone would actually claim victory about that. But those were donor funds, and the government did zilch about helping those people. So we've got
Is it 100% factual that there
Yes.
was no government money put into?
well, I said 90% of those of those issues, of the money that went to Idai came from donor funds. You see?
I would like for us to. This is a very open place. I love facts. I'd like for us, if we come back again, to have verified whenever we use numbers. It's very important, to verify. I'm not pushing back on the numbers you are giving, but my question that will come to you, I want to come back to Mr. Signoro there. My question that comes to you is, do you see any possibility of Zimbabweans and Zimbabwean political organizations to converge intentionally with a common purpose of moving our country forward? Do you see that happening? To you, Kennedy.
Reverend, if you get a chance to, can I get a minute just to address something he said here before we move on, if you don't mind?
Okay, go ahead.
Earlier on, you said the word legislation change. And I would prefer for my honorable friend, Mr. Comrade Kennedy, does not insinuate what I know and what I don't know. Let's stick to the conversation. When you're talking about legislation change, there's only one branch of government that can do that. So that's why I was shaking my head and he wants to lump everything in because we've got MPs in parliament who are busy walking out instead of doing their job. Instead of executing the things he's talking about, they should stay in parliament, sit down, attend all committees, do what they have to do in order to fulfill the mandate that they were given by the people, which they haven't been doing. And when it also comes to factual, when we have these discussions, I like that, Reverend, you came back and we said, we need to have facts. We cannot make up stats as we go along. I would like Comrade Kennedy, if he can, I call him Comrade because Comrade is a citizen like me, identify any bridge in Chimanimani that was built by donors. Because bridge constructions are happening right now. Or identify any road you can tell me that was built by donors to repair and restore what happened. We cannot say 90% of the funding for those victims was from donors when we cannot say this bridge was built by the Red Cross or the Kennedy Foundation, or whatever foundation he wants to say. So I yield the floor for him again to give me that piece of information to say this was done by this organization, so we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's a valid question, and it's coming to Kennedy in terms of whether it's infrastructure, whether it's feeding the victims. It's important to separate issues and say how much came from UNDP, for example. That's the agency that would. How much came? I know there was some funds from the U.S. government, and how much? I know some of our own Zimbabweans very encouraged. I'm very encouraged by the philanthropic spirit that is growing among our own citizens. There were people who did quite some work that we must celebrate across the party lines. This is what encourages me. This is what I'm also hoping in our conversation, that we build our conversation to say we can converge. We are people of one country. We can have a common purpose for our nation. Is this possible, Kennedy?
Yes, it's possible if we identify those issues that we're talking about, issues of legitimacy, issues. Because you see, the thing is, Zimbabweans, what's dividing Zimbabweans right now is the issue of elections. We cannot talk. We know we can try to hide behind our fingers and say, "Hey, this is happening, this is happening." But the issue of elections has been the issue that has been dividing Zimbabweans since the 2000s. Let's try to address those things. Let's try to come together and make sure that when we get into elections, we all agree that we are getting into elections NEMA terms with the terms that we all understand and agree upon. We cannot get into elections when, you see, there are some people who have got an upper edge in terms of the legislative environment that is there. So for me as a lawyer, I'm saying the electoral laws that are there, they are not conducive for a fair and fair elections. And even if we have another elections in 2023, those same issues will continue to arise, and the issue of legitimacy will continue to derail progress in Zimbabwe. So I know, through these conversations, we can definitely come to terms and agree that if these issues are to be dealt with, not cast away as old issues and stuff, that is what makes us go back and then just stop and not go forward. We need to discuss these issues openly, and we need to pinpoint those areas that we say, okay, so and so party, if we get into elections with this kind of laws or regulations in place, will it be okay? Yes, it will be okay. But after elections, then whoever comes out and tries to then deal with those old issues then becomes the villain. But let's deal with that. Let's go to the population. Let's talk to the people and make sure that we all are in these elections, truly believing that they are free and fair.
Okay, we have 10 minutes to go, and I think that one of the things, and I think as I move on to Mr. Signoro, I have stuffed him off some time there. I will let you go and maybe take some 5 minutes to say what you were gonna say earlier on, but then I also am very keen to hear your views about convergence, about common purpose for our country. My question that I had, because we talked, I think Kennedy talked about health there. I am very keen on knowing the policy that your party has as far as vaccination. I am not sure I have had consistent policy from the MDC Alliance related to vaccination. In fact, last week on Heart and Soul television, the president of MDC Alliance, when asked about vaccination, he said, and I'm not quoting verbatim, but he said, it's up to the citizens to decide what they want to do. What would you say is the policy related to vaccinations and the programs of vaccination going on in the country? And then just take a minute to answer that, and I want to move on to Senior. Kennedy.
Yes, thank you. Well, when it regards to vaccination, I would speak on my own behalf and my observations. I cannot speak on the policy of the party because I'm not authorized to do that. But from what you just said, the president, our president Nelson Chamisa, rightfully said that it's up to the citizens to get vaccinated or not. That is a situation in every country. Even here in America, it's a choice for someone to get vaccinated or not. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But vaccinations that have been going on and that the government has been doing are commended. This is me speaking personally, are commended because that is very important in order to nip, this deadly coronavirus on the chap. But now, when it comes to choice, that is basically, it comes down to the choice of the person whether they want to be vaccinated or not, and that is a human right, and that is you cannot force anyone to do that.
Do you think it's a responsible and leadership action to do to encourage citizens to be vaccinated? Do you think it's a responsible and leadership thing to do, to encourage, rather than to say?
Yes.
Okay, I think you answered me. Mr. Signoro, it's your time now.
Okay.
I'm not going to say much, but alluding to your earlier question, we've been promised mega deals by the new administration. We have not seen those mega deals. We have seen them, some of them, but they've failed and aborted takeoff. And I would like to support the point raised by Kennedy here. And I also agree with you where you say we need facts. But the truth of the matter is most of the projects that are being channeled in Zimbabwe, even those that took off Mugabe's time, to a large extent, they are donor funds. And preview to the Japanese project, I was partly involved when we approached Themba Mliswa, one of the MPs, to construct a road from Norton to Sandringham. So I think we need facts, yes, but I think it's not fair also for Zimbabweans not to say the truth. And I always say the true position, the history of Zimbabwe and the current situation has not been told. Yes, the credit goes to the ruling party, but I think we'll discuss further when we've got facts. And the sticking issue or the legitimacy issue, I think we need to tackle that one seriously. I see convergence. There's light at the end of the day. The way I see things, there is light at the end of the day. The chances are there that one day the two political parties and the entire nation will come to a point where they'll admit that they are tired of pursuing political interest, and I'm responding to your question where you're asking, is there light? Is there possibility of convergence? Yes, there is. But however, subject for another day. There is no way we can build an economy with emotions, leading left, right, center. There is need for national healing, and we are trying to build. At the same time, we are emotional. We are not taking something just because it's coming from ZANU-PF. We are not adopting something because it's coming from the opposition, and I think that is a setback. And
Well,
corruption, I do agree, totally agree, and I have to give an example. I'm sorry, I have to give an example to support what um, Mr.
Kenneth,
Mjuru was saying.
okay.
We have one of the members of parliament then, who is being represented. I think the case is still going on by an opposition lawyer, which is a cause for concern. You can't be an advocate for anti-corruption, but also standing in a court of law defending that somebody who is being charged for corruption, former minister, and you are saying they are not corrupt. It clearly states that we have a problem there. I would have mentioned names, but because of time, I didn't.
Yeah,
I
I think you are right. There's serious confliction, but you know what? I really want to appreciate your view there, and your views are very sober. Kenneth's view are very sober. We are doing what Zimbabweans should do. I think this is it. This is it. We can disagree without being disagreeable. You know, this is mature. So I'm gonna give Simba, whenever we see Monica back on the screen, I know what it means. She's ready to to wind this down, but over to you, Simba, to kind of give us a summarized version of your viewpoints here, especially what you project for the future.
I wanted to touch a couple of things before and I'll make it brief. I'll make it under 3 minutes or so, 2 minutes. I heard Kennedy there talking about the successes of us being able to acquire vaccines for the nation, which is commendable, because opposition coming to say that, I think we moved a step forward in the right direction we want to go. So unfortunately, he's not here. I wanted to say that to him directly, so he hears me saying that. A point of correction, Senior. You said ZANU-PF took Chamisa to court over legitimacy. ZANU-PF never took Chamisa to court over legitimacy. That's a fact. One of the reasons why people like me come to these platforms, well, I feel I have to come to these platforms, is those inconsistencies or imbalances. We try and put them into perspective so that when we're sending the message out there, at least people are getting the right message. Then you talked about the internal squabbles, or let me not say squabbles, the internal issues that ZANU-PF has to address. ZANU-PF is a big tent. We welcome you, Comrade Senior. You can come and join the party. We can have those conversations, Mumbamedu, together as part of the party. But generally, we're a disciplined party, very, very disciplined. We tend not to discuss internal things outside. We try and keep it in-house. So that's why we won't answer those questions. But like I said, I extend an invitation for you to come and be a part of us. These conversations, Reverend and Monica, are very, very important, because when people talk, people can understand each other and they build relationships, and relationships matter. When I say relationships, if me and Kennedy, for example, if we start to have a relationship, next time we talk about the country issues, it's no longer personal. It's because there's a relationship there. We're likely to listen to each other. And if we listen to each other, the country moves forward. We want opposition to not walk out of parliament. We want them to stay and debate issues, build those relationships so the country can move forward. So I hope in this dialogue, it spreads to many corners of the country where we can have civil conversations like what Reverend was saying.
Do you want them to join Pollard as well? Because I don't think the MDC Alliance and the MDCT are included in Pollard. What's the sticking point? Just very, very, very briefly.
It's up to them. They're the ones that rejected. The president built a platform for all political parties to come and discuss, regardless of size. So he said, it doesn't matter how big your political party is, but here's a place, a platform where we can all talk. They refused because they wanted to set up their own place, and they wanted, again, remember, these are people that are not in government. So and elections have consequences. If we go strictly into strategy and some of the things that they don't look, when they look into the mirror, this is what they need to look at. Number one, everybody in the hierarchy is a lawyer. So how do you lose a court case if you're all lawyers? I don't understand that. Number two, political strategy. Yes, it's nice for the candidate to go and campaign in Wange. Great, good. You should campaign everywhere. But I also argue that there are more elephants than voters in Wange. So we can't strategize for them. Then you can't say when you lose the election because you are campaigning in Wange, right? Go campaign, it's good. But you can't say because we've lost now, we're going to challenge everything to court. When court or you lose also there, you come back and say it was unfair and cry wolf all the time. That's why sometimes we get to a point we say we cannot engage in this conversation because now we're on the treadmill, we're running in one place. So in conclusion, I'd say if they want to talk, the president has made it open, come to Pollard, let's sit down, let's have conversations. We can talk anything you want, but that's a platform for us to have conversations and discussions. And Comrade Signor, please come and join the party too.
Man, I did not realize that this will end up with an invitation recruitment. My question before I give back to Monica, Signor, here's an invitation. What's your response to Simba there?
Things are not in order in ZANU-PF. I like the way you've presented it. This is the same problem that I have with organizing Pollard, which is to me like a wedding, a marriage. At the same time, filing a divorce, which is equivalent to 2023 election. It shows confusion, and here comes an invitation where there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm saying we have confusion in the ruling party. And also we have confusion in the opposition. My last point, confusion on the opposition, is that I like what he said, that the platform is not conducive for a free and fair election. The platform is not conducive for a free and fair election. The million-dollar question is, Tirikuite, what are we doing? Why are we pushing for a losing battle? Why are we wasting resources as a nation? Having said that, Mr. Maforo, it's a subject for another day.
Yes,
there are a lot of sticking issues. Yes. There's confusion.
Let's move this to the other day.
Exactly. Okay.
The other day, I'm gonna tell you, because Simba is inviting you. You guys need to find each other offline, and Simba will send you a membership form, I guess, and you will respond with an acceptance or a rejection. Our time, I'm giving it over back to Monica.
Finally, I thought I was never going to get a chance to speak.
Here you are. You go ahead, and this is empowerment. We give you the last. We serve the last for the best.
Absolutely. You see now, I just want to appreciate each and every person who's been on this panel. I was sitting here in the background taking notes and listening, and I've been learning from all of you. And what I am happy about is the fact that people from different parties, people with different views and perspectives can come and talk together and have a discussion respectfully. because there was a time it was even difficult to even just, the mention of a person from it, it was just difficult. We couldn't do it. But the fact that we are here, it means that vana vemunhu mumwe chete will always be vana vemunhu mumwe chete, no matter what. So vana veZimbabwe will always be vana veZimbabwe, no matter what. And I know that most of the time, when the word politics is not on the table, if anything happens to Mkoma Kennedy, Mkoma Simba would be the first one to say, how can I help you? And everything else is put kumashuro. And so as we continue sitting down, talking and talking, we've come a long way, and we learn through repetition as well. There are programs that we have in our minds that through talking, through discussing, through hearing, we will deprogram certain things that are preventing us from moving forward. And I just want to thank people who have, Nkoma Simba, Nkoma Kennedy, Signoro, and Reverend Maforo. That was great hosting. We hope that we will continue having these discussions, as you say, so that we move our country forward, because that is our aim. Whatever we are doing, the idea, the passion, the vision is to move forward so that the quality of life of every citizen in Zimbabwe improves. Thank you very much. Thanks to the audience who have been listening. We hope to see you again very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.